6 o'clock. This meeting is called to order. Bill, would you please lead in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. First order of business is to approve minutes of previous meetings, beginning with our work session on January 13, 2014.
I move to approve those minutes as written.
Second.
It's been moved by Mike and seconded by Dick. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those minutes are approved. And moving on, that also included the budget work session, all on the same page. So I will take that was included in that particular approval. And moving on to the regular meeting of January 13, 2014.
Move that those minutes be approved as written.
Second.
It's been moved by Bill and seconded by Neil that those minutes be approved. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those minutes are approved. Announcements. The Select Board will meet on the following dates. Regular meetings at 6 p.m. on February 10 and 24, 2014. There will be a second budget public hearing and reading the petition warrant articles on February 6, 2014. The second budget hearing is if needed. Work review sessions prior to the regular meetings will start at 5 p.m. All of these meetings will be held in the town hall unless otherwise posted. Weather observations for the month of December are available in the town hall, and citizens wishing to be listed on the Select Board agenda should notify the town hall before 12 noon on the Friday before the scheduled meeting. And we do have a 6:30 public hearing scheduled on the fiscal year 2014-2015 municipal budget. But since it is not 6:30 yet, we will move on the agenda to committee reports. Neil?
We haven't had any meetings.
All right.
I sent an email to Paul and Val regarding the last meeting of the Plymouth Water and Sewer, where they had a presentation relative to redevelopment of Tenny Mountain and that whole, and some of that whole corridor area. And I think that's a discussion that they will continue to have with the potential developer of that. And kind of in a small nutshell, the discussion related to water and the water and sewer commissioners kind of participating in some of the redevelopment up there relative to water supplies, and kind of becoming an active partner and maybe eventually even taking over that system up there with some financial benefits for the water and sewer district. As far as overall revenues and expanding their customer base, etc. And both Tenny Mountain needs a secondary supply, and the town needs and is looking for a secondary supply.
I just, to clarify that, since I live there, that the Tenny actually does now have a second supply. I don't think they were aware of that, but there is a second well that was dug on the hill that is now operating.
But it's sort of a mutual benefit discussion and arrangement that could eventually take place. So that's continuing to be discussed.
I hope it moves forward. All right.
That would be nice. I have nothing to report.
Bill?
The school board is scheduled for February 3rd. It hasn't met since last time, but there's 3 agenda items that might be of interest. One is the Educational Theater Collaborative Contract approval, which will be done at that meeting. There's also a Homeland Security Grant award, and also there's going to be further discussion on the FY15 budget. It's draft number 3, including the warrant articles.
And I see that is on February 3rd. What time is that budget hearing, Bill?
I'm not certain if the budget hearing itself has been scheduled, but the meeting starts at 6.
Okay.
and they're generally fairly quick, so guys to show up. And there is a deliberative session tomorrow night with the SAU High School Board, and there was some communication regarding that, and I think that is also probably, and unfortunately, I don't know the time of that meeting, but they are going to review either a cogeneration plant or at least a chip burning plant at the deliberative session, and I think it should generate interest. I hope people kind of show up for that, if you have an opinion one way or the other, or if you just want to hear the discussion. And usually there's not much attendance for these high school meetings with SAU meetings, so it would be nice if more people attended. So that's tomorrow night. Time that, go ahead.
And I just got a general question. Any indicators on how their budgets are doing?
How their budgets are doing?
Anticipated increase, staying level funded? Has any of that been brought up yet?
This, the plant actually theoretically might be like a revenue producer. But I'm not certain exactly what that,
No, not the overall budget.
What about the elementary
This
school?
is the SAU. Elementary school? It's, close.
Close to level funded?
Yeah.
I'm just anticipating the revenues for the future, that's all.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. And the Campus Community Council has not met. The next meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, February 18 at 5:30 PM, and that will be here in the town hall. All right, moving on to other business. Sharon, Penny is going to discuss an Olivia Bartlett collaborative GIS effort between the town of Plymouth and GIS land use class at Plymouth State. Come on up.
Hi there.
Good evening.
Hello. This is Olivia Bartlett. She's an adjunct professor, despite her youthful countenance, at PSU. Makes me feel really old. And I asked her to come with me tonight. Just for a wee bit of background, we've had some outreach the last couple of years with PSU in terms of working interactively, keeping each other apprised of what's going on. We did participate, Paul and myself, last year in their master plan update, and through that, and just how it works in a small town, knowing people and stuff, there's been several opportunities for me to interact with some of their planning classes, their environmental classes, and when it's a very small circle, you get to be the guest speaker a lot of times because there's only one of me in the whole department. So hopefully through that genesis, the word got out, and Olivia contacted me, I think it was right before Thanksgiving, maybe Christmas time, about possibly having her students, she works with GIS, I think everybody's pretty familiar with what GIS is, Geographic Information Systems, of which the town has no assets. We've got nada, we have zip, and we're sorely lacking in any updates on any of our mapping or data, anything. That's why we are working with North Country Council to update the Tenny Mountain Highway Corridor Access Management Study. So very long story short, Olivia and I met about a week or so ago, and I'll let her speak to the actual workings of what we're going to do, but she has some very eager students who want to do some GPS work and GIS work. I have a lot of things that need to be done. I have absolutely no equipment, no hardware, no software, so it sounds like a perfect quid pro quo to me, and I think it would be very interesting for the students to have some hands-on real-world experience, and the fact that the university is literally in our back door, it's wonderful to be able to take advantage of it. So that is it in a very large nutshell, and I'll let Olivia speak to the nuts and bolts of it. So.
So I'm teaching a spring class, and it's smart land use, but it's through the lens of a GIS technician, analyst, or specialist. So there's a GIS certificate available that the students can take classes for and apply for. and then receive their certificate as they go out into the professional world. And so I modeled this class in just the need in my background experience and work experience, focusing on land use. So they'll be learning about basic concepts of land use, but primarily things that they would be approached as either an analyst, a contractor, or an academic setting in needs of town planning, future zoning, future projections and scenarios and things like that. So I really wanted them to be manipulating data that was real world and relevant to them, and I find that generally helpful for students understanding some of these broader concepts when you're dealing with spatial scale and land cover and imagery. There's a lot of spatial data out there and technology is advancing, so students are sort of expected to know a lot. So I just was hoping that we could work, and Sharon thankfully agreed to come speak to the class briefly.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
Briefly.
Well, that's my pound of flesh. I don't, it'll be the same spiel, but.
And then I was hoping that we could use your town parcel data in return, so the students could see what perhaps a geodatabase might look like coming from most towns. That's fairly standard what you guys have available for your data and how to manipulate that. And then what I'd like to do in turn is, as a final class project, I was looking through the master plan, and I saw some of the maps, the spatial data that was used. Some of the maps were older data sets, and so particularly one I thought that the students could really work on the best was a land cover data set specific to the town of Plymouth, because the maps, land cover.
What does that mean?
So generally vegetation,
Oh.
just anything, it'll...
What's where, kind of.
Yep, and so you'll see rural versus urban, commercial, residential, and there's fairly standardized, this is a national data set, so they had fairly broad categories, not to mention that they created this data set at a much larger scale. And so I thought maybe that perhaps the town of Plymouth could benefit from some comparison and see if we could create a map that was a little more accurate and
More micro.
scaled down to the town of Plymouth rather than national.
I did check, I didn't have a chance to tell you, but I did check with the GIS person at North Country Council in terms of the Tenny Mountain Highway Corridor Update Study, blah, blah, blah. And anyway, his data, and this is where I don't know what I'm talking about, would correspond with yours in terms of the nuts and bolts and everything, because I would love to have your students, if there's time, see what North Country Council has submitted, the Regional Planning Commission, and then we're going to try to extrapolate and do a little bit more. And also, you know, there are a lot of projects out there, perhaps the Railroad Square Initiative with the 10,000 easements, rights of way, and fusion, and, you know, I would just be thrilled. It's like being a kid in a candy store to have a whole bunch of students standing out there and getting, you know, satellite data. So I'm very excited and very pleased, and thank you. Because I think this is how it should work, and this is a wonderful opportunity for us. It's a real gift for the town, and certainly for my one-person department.
So it's going to go hand in hand with the North Country thing, but but that's going to focus on Tenny Mountain Highway, essentially? And you're looking at the whole town of Plymouth, like a land, land cover map and...
Yes, I mean, I'd like to say yes, ideally. I want to make sure that if I promise a deliverable, it's possible. I don't know if the entire town will be possible, but I'm hoping it will be.
Yeah, we don't have a lot in the archives. We have pretty much nothing, and some of the stuff that we do have, like the natural resources inventory, I guess, if I understand correctly, the software, it's not compatible, or it's certainly antiquated.
Yep.
You know, when you look at something like that and it's 7 or 8 years later, it's a totally different ballgame. So anyway, I just wanted to keep you folks informed.
Yeah, I just want to bring up that we might not be doing the whole town, like Olivia just indicated, still saving us a significant amount of money that we were going to have to do in feasibility studies anyway, and we needed this kind of information. We were able to take a significant amount out of the budget when this came forward. So we will try to identify and sit down again what town properties we own that need feasibility studies, from the airport or up down by the recycling center, the 25 acres that we picked up, and we really haven't gotten out there and been able to walk it, the small parcel up on Tenny Mountain Ridge itself, to where we were going to have to start doing something this year, and it was going to be costly. And it was either purchase the equipment and do it ourselves or hire it out. And the quid pro quo really was only, I don't have to speak at any class. And Sharon does.
At the bottom of the food
So
chain, that's what.
that's the only cost.
Yeah.
So it doesn't hit our budget, and we really appreciate it.
It's a great symbiosis, it really is. I'm thrilled, and hopefully you'll be happy, and your kids will be out there with boots literally on the ground, so.
But to narrow it down specifically, yes, 10-acre corridor, and then as far as we can go.
I definitely don't want to scare anybody off, but so would you be assuming any risk, by giving us a tool that, we might, base, planning on, that?
Well, I mean, I'm fairly familiar with this process, and there certainly would be all sorts of information that's associated with the data that you'd get from us, how it was created, how it should be used, how it shouldn't be used.
Caveats.
And I do want to say that there can be some time on the ground, but the class is primarily at the computer and analyzing data. But what I do want to make sure is whatever we produce fits within what exists for your spatial data. So you have something called a geodatabase for your town parcels, and that's typically how a lot of towns move forward when they work with spatial data. So I want to make sure that whatever we give you not only has a full, what's called metadata associated with it, but also speaks to what exists there. So when you do have the capabilities, you're not working with multiple different file types and things like that, trying to make them coordinate. So just making sure it's building from what you have.
At the risk of sounding really stupid,
That's
Get in
fine.
line, Mike.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
That's okay.
That's a little bit of an overstatement, but can you tell us what we have now and what this is going to be, just so we understand what you're talking about? Because this is all new to me, at least.
Sure. So you guys have the town parcels?
Tax
We have
maps.
tax maps,
Tax
yeah.
maps.
We're
And
familiar with-
there's a digital version of that.
Yeah,
That you can access through a software program
Yeah.
called ArcGIS, and it's stored in sort of what's called a bucket. It's called a geodatabase, and there's multiple subfolders within that geodatabase.
yeah.
And there's a particular way that you store it in your bucket that it all speaks to each other. And it's really important that there's information outlining how that was created, how it was added in, and was it CAT Technologies? Was that who you guys had?
Is this the people up at
cartographics.
Little Cartographics?
Yes,
did it?
yeah.
Yeah.
We-
Okay,
we
so I know what those look
We don't
like.
have we have very little, if any, capacity to manipulate this data. And by manipulate, I mean pull out what you need to create a certain map with certain attributes and layers and rivers and, we've got the basics, but this will help fill in that gap.
So we're going to end up with the same tax map parcels, I guess, when you're done, but with additional information layered
Yes.
over them? Is
I
that?
think, and Sharon and I will be very specific, just because I don't want to overextend a commitment or overextend what I say what we can do. So we'll meet and discuss and finalize precisely in detail what it'll be and the information that.
Well, anything
Disclaimer.
above 0 is a positive number, so.
Isn't there some project going on that started at UNH, I thought, that involves
Granite?
trying to map the whole state pretty much?
So there's free data available through
Granite?
Granite.
It's a
What
granite
is it?
system.
The granite system?
Yeah.
But it's not, the minutia's not there, Mike. It's
Yeah.
it's kind of, it's a very good system, but it's general statewide. If I understand it correctly and what we spoke about, this is going to be hopefully a lot more site-specific because you really are just beaming up to satellite for specifically here, not a wide angle.
So is this, would
I have
this
a question.
be incorporated into that in some way, or become part of that, or is it?
It would be up to you. So whatever we created for you, it would be at your discretion
I
to
see.
make
So
it available.
It might be compatible with it?
It will be, absolutely. It'll be the same format, just how what we deliver and package for the town of Plymouth will be compatible with Granite.
Will this show buildings?
Well, it depends. It depends on what you need. You do have buildings already. You don't have aerial imagery of buildings, but you have the ability to show the outlines of buildings on top of aerial imagery.
Neil?
Are you going to incorporate web soil survey data?
Probably not.
Wish-
But it's possible. I think I'm just going to use this as a test piece.
Maybe next time.
Okay.
Hopefully there'll be a next
All right.
time.
And if there's a GIS soils specific class.
Next semester?
Maybe. I'm not a soil scientist, so.
For sure, Neil, those capabilities would be there, but I think Sharon, number one, would have to speak only one time. That gets a little costly. But going back to what you were saying, Bill, were you anticipating whether there would be a degree of error that we would have to worry about
Not necessarily. I'm just wondering if, like, PSU or you are willing to assume any risks that if we become dependent upon your tools to make decisions, and something actually was maybe not an error, but maybe we came to the wrong decision.
I think it
Well, that's
would be
what-
broad-based.
And that's what I wanted to speak on. The fact that we have something to start with,
Yeah.
and it's the base, it's the foundation, it's not the second tier or the third tier, and they would be adding layers on top of what we already have, will be
Just
fine.
a-
If we
yeah.
didn't have the base, and then we could breathe off but I don't think that would be a problem, considering that the layer wouldn't fit properly over our existing information, and that would be the check and balance.
Ordinarily, anything that's of any, any legal ramifications or anything that's that serious, you want field surveyed pretty much, so.
And this is absolutely not survey grade quality. It's generally recreational grade quality. The students will be using, the university has Trimble units, what they call is typically mapping grades. So you can get within a certain degree sub-meter accuracy, but there is a lot of information in that metadata that'll explain, this is within a 10-foot accuracy or 20-foot accuracy.
Of course, when you say metadata, everyone thinks NSA, but that's okay. Don't worry about it.
It's not going to replace the transit.
No.
That would eventually have to be used at some
Yeah,
point.
down to that level, yep.
Well, do you end up with the tax map, I guess, descriptions or pictures on your map
Yes.
from
She's
that?
seeking our
I've already lent
Yeah.
those
Okay,
CDs to
gotcha.
Olivia, and she's gone through them, just to make sure. Because we don't have the software to deal with any of that here.
Oh, that's very interesting.
It sounds like a great program.
I'd ideally like to start small,
Yeah.
with the semester and then see.
Don't scare her.
No, honestly, it looks like it truly is something that we
Yeah,
can
it's,
expand on over the years,
Yep.
and possibly use the university as the source to go further.
Yeah, that's great.
I think it's a great idea.
Thank you.
So.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Super. Okay, and moving on, we have already discussed casino and the Ellsworth Fire Department. Called next on the agenda, we have the town's website.
During the budget season, we had discussed how we wanted to improve the website going forward. And some of the things that we would like to see that we don't feel is on the current website, which is more of a template form, cut and paste. Can't be too creative with the current website and the program that we use. And we began looking into some prices that will be reflected when we get into the budget. And that's kind of it, what we want our budget to sustain, and as form as where do we want the website to go. And we have received feedback from some of you, but we have discussed a couple of months ago and last month that we did want it to definitely have a better front page and be friendly, user-friendly, easier to navigate, and what type of information the general public has been feeding back to us that they want to see on it. And our main tech has gotten back to us with a price, which seems like it could be a little costly. I think they would agree. So we're currently seeking other sources that may be able to help us with the website design, including PSU and other people that we know that Dick's going to get back to with a price on virtual town hall, which is a program used by many other towns. But as we discussed a couple of months ago, that we're definitely beyond the point of using this cut and paste template, and the need to also have a couple of individuals trained in the operation of whatever new program we have going forward. Right now, it's truly done by committee, and that's why there are things that stay on there too long, and there's other things that don't get put on there fast enough. And it's been recognized and it's being worked on. And I didn't mention that, we did put $5,000 in the budget. Hopefully we don't have to use that much, that we get some kind of assistance so that the number is lower. But I'm sure by the time we throw in training to go along with the program that we might have to purchase, I guess it could get between $3,000 and $5,000.
And then there's a maintenance cost as well, I gather from what I read, right? Once you
Right.
get it.
If you look at our mainstay contract and the estimate that he gave back to us on all the things that I told him we would like it to be able to do, they came back with $3,400 and then a maintenance program. But some of these you can maintain yourself going forward, some of the programs like that.
I also got the impression that there's at least a couple of them that these are town-specific. I think the one you wrote about was
Right.
municipally specific type of service, is that right? So, and are these more like templates, not to use the same word, but municipal type of template, or is there something else about municipal websites that
I mean,
makes them?
I think the one that the city of Franklin used and developed and is using now, I mean, there's some template components to it, but you can modify it and make it work for you by, you know, the types of photographs you put in, or the types of information, and the links to various departments, agencies, et cetera. So, I mean, you can really make it work so that it reflects your needs and your wants.
And right now, we are limited, especially in the graphics part, on what we can put for graphics, without starting to pay. And if we're gonna pay, then we might as well just have a better program.
So the one we have now, somebody did it for us, and it's just, or it's on some kind of template,
It's
isn't
a
it?
template type thing. You remove something and you stick something back in. If there's not enough room, we can't
You
do
can't
it.
do it.
It's,
So it's pretty much obsolete, I guess.
It's obsolete. And one of the big concerns that I mentioned to you a month or two ago is the security of the site. We had to make some improvements to it when I talked to you, because there was a chance that anybody could have gotten to any of our minutes online and just changed them to reflect anything that they wanted to say, if not worse, in some other document. Or actually attach a document to our website.
So
Or
remove
a
it.
link.
Yeah.
That would take you to some place we wouldn't want people to go to. So we've taken care of those problems, but it's already starting to get costly to have this website, this program is at the lowest level that you could be at,
Right.
which is why it's practically free. It's just like an add-on service that we're not really being charged that much for. And we can't continue at that level. You know.
Right, yeah, we definitely need to upgrade that, I agree.
And something that the department heads can be interactive
Yeah.
with the websites too,
Well, I
which
was-
helps keep your website updated a lot better than
Yeah,
the information having to be handled by one individual, to which we don't have that kind of time at the moment.
yeah, it could be a very effective tool, I think.
Well, and people just rely on websites more and
Yeah,
more
yeah,
to get
absolutely.
information. That's,
Yep.
if it's not good, it's not working. So,
Well, I think we probably also want to, my thought is we want it to be attractive and draw in people too, prospective visitors and, you know, all those people that might come to this town for some other reason, and it doesn't do that job. It wasn't designed to, but it doesn't do that, so maybe, I'm sure these other platforms have that kind of capability too. to be-
Yeah, you can put in, you know, links so you can go to little videos or whatever it may be that help promote PR and that kind of thing.
It would be helpful to work in with discussions with the Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah,
And,
I think they've just redone theirs.
yeah, there's this.
so make sure that there's some kind of synergy between what their goal is in saying and promoting what they're promoting to what we want to promote on ours.
Yeah, that's a good thing, that's exciting.
Closing in on 6:30.
Official time, 6:29.
You've got 6:29? It is 6:30. This budget public hearing is called to order. This is the 2014-2015 fiscal year budget public hearing. And I'd like to start by thanking Town Administrator Paul Freitas Executive Assistant Kathy Lowe, other members of our Budget Advisory Committee, and all of our department heads for the many hours of work they've put in on this proposed budget. Budget preparation takes a significant amount of time, energy, and knowledge by everyone, and everyone has to work together to get the budget within a reasonable rate of increase as being presented at this hearing. The purpose of this public hearing is to discuss the requested fiscal year 2014-2015 budget and explain what is being requested by each department, if there are questions. And further, we ask for any input, questions, or suggestions, and that those be made as we go along, as this is the public's opportunity to understand the budget, the requested budget. So as we have done in previous years, what I would like to do is to go through the budget page by page, and throughout the budget you'll notice that any department that does bring in offsetting revenue shows the funds that were brought in for the 2012-2013 budget year, and that is just to give you something to bounce that figure off of. So we will begin with page 1 of the budget. And does anyone have any questions concerning page 1? There are no questions concerning page 1. We'll move on to page 2. Are there any questions concerning page 2 of the budget? There being none, we will move on to page 3.
Thank you.
Are there any questions concerning page 3 of the proposed budget? There being none, we will move on to page 4. Are there any questions concerning page 4 of the budget? There being none, we'll move on to page 5. Are there any questions concerning page 5? There being none, we will move on to page 6. Are there any questions concerning page 6? There being none, we will move on to page 7. Any questions concerning page 7 of the budget? There being none, we'll move on to page 8. Any questions concerning page 8? There being none, we will move on to page 9. Any questions concerning page 9? There being none, we will move on to page 10. Are there any questions concerning page 10? There being none, we will move on to page 11. Are there any questions concerning page 11? There being none, we'll move on to page 12. Are there any questions concerning page 12? There being none, we'll move on to page 13. Are there any questions concerning page 13? There being none, we'll move on to page 14. Yes, Mr.
I can't let
Sansers.
you go without having something to say. I'm looking at road construction. We have $60,000 in the budget for road construction. What roads are we gonna do something with?
Paul, would you like to address that?
I'd like to start off by saying that Pete is not here tonight. He's got some physical problems that he's taking care of. That $60,000 is for the care of all our roads. When they come up during the year, the number that you're looking for is the bigger number that we'll get to on another page, the
I
100.
can't hear you, Paul.
The number that you're looking at right now, Paul, is the everyday, every week, every month maintenance of all of the roads where potholes come up, cracks get done, stuff like that. The number that you're looking for, to be more specific, is the $125,000 number that comes up later in the budget.
Yeah, so,
And I know he has mentioned 4 to 5 different roads in the village area. We'll try to, and maybe I'll talk to that more at that point when we get to that line.
yeah, my only concern about the maintenance and the upkeep of the roads here, I realize we've had some very lean budgets, and we have to thank you for the lean budgets through the tough years here. However, I also noticed that our infrastructure is really getting bad in many, many areas, and if we don't start putting a little more in the budget for that, then we're gonna really pay down the road, because we won't be doing shims and overlays, we'll be doing reclamation. And that's something we wanna try and stay out of.
I understand, and as Paul said, there is a line later in the budget that really talks about starting to address that infrastructure, so, but this is just the basic road maintenance. Are there any other questions concerning page 14? There being none, we'll move on to page 15. Any questions concerning page 15? There being none, we'll move on to page 16. Any questions concerning page 16? There being none, we'll move on to page 17. Are there any questions concerning page 17? There being none, we'll move on to page 18. Are there any questions concerning page 18? There being none, we will move on to page 19. Any questions concerning page 19? There being none, we'll move on to page 20. Any questions concerning page 20? There being none, we'll move on to page 21. And this is where, Mr. Sansucci, that $125,000 improve road construction comes into play. And as Paul said, our highway manager has identified at least 4 roads that he's mentioned, but he is not here tonight. I'd rather have him speak to those.
That's fine.
And I can't mention that normally we would take that 125, Paul, and do a road in the village, a complete road, because that's about what it costs for us to go a block and reclaim everything and do it from the subsurface to the overlay. This year, and we haven't been able to do that for the last 4 years because of budget restraints, so we've been using that money in the outskirts of Plymouth because we can match it with mitigation money from the federal government. So we're actually getting 3 to 1 on the dollar. This year, we've decided that it's time to come back into the village area. But Peter suggested, similar to what you're saying now, instead of picking one road and doing it, he has 4 or 5 places that he wants to address starting this year, this construction season that's coming up, and not let those roads get to the point where infrastructure would get affected. So he's going to do that rather than just designating the whole 125 to just one particular road. And then the following year was his plan to go back and start to do one road in the village like we used to.
These are going to be shims and overlays then,
Yeah.
rather than reclamation?
Yep, and stopping the cracks now before, 125,000 doesn't go that far when
Oh, I know.
we try to cover all the problems that we have, so 4 or 5 roads will be at least mitigated to the point where they won't get any worse than what they already are. And we will also continue to look for mitigation money for the back roads. It's just that we've got to be careful because we need matching funds, 25% to do that.
Yes.
If we're looking at fixing roads, has there been any thought of going back to the contractors who did Merrill Street, because the drainage is still wrong on that street, it's still puddles, and the drains don't work right, and they've fixed it, they did it once and they fixed it once and it's still not right?
I didn't want to say that.
So I think that that's something that the construction company should fix, it's just wrong. If you walk down there on a rainy day, the puddles are not a lot less than they were prior. The road is a little bit better because it hasn't deteriorated to the point that it has.
One thing I can speak on, Kate, that was going to be like an $800,000 project, and that was done through some grant money, and all that was achieved was $275,000. And for now, that was the $275,000 fix. Is it still looking like it needs more attention? Yes, but to go back to the contractor,
But they put the drains in the wrong place. When the drains are on the uphill side, it's not going to help with the drainage coming down the hill. I mean, I walk it every day, and several of the drains are on the wrong side of the street. And that's a basic engineering issue that the contractors should have done. So just if we're looking at reclaiming some roads, that's one that's going to deteriorate much sooner than it should have with the work that was done.
Well, we don't have our,
are you talking about where drains weren't before, or new
Yes.
drains?
If we're new drains, where they put new drains in, some of them are on the uphill side of the street. So I guess that's just my concern is that, it doesn't flood as much as it used to. And perhaps it was because we couldn't put enough money in when we needed to fix it. But if you look at some of the drains, and they did fix them once, I know they went in and fixed them once because the first fix was terrible. But on a rainy day, walk down Merrill Street and you'll see that the water's going beyond some of the drains because they're on the wrong side of the street.
And again, the only thing I can refer back to is the people that did the design with the grant money. they were the ones that were responsible, they are no longer.
I'm just making a point that.
We do know, and we know that we've got problems out there,
So,
and the 125 isn't,
no, I understand that, and I'm not asking the 125 to be spent on that. I just think that if it's an engineering flaw,
yeah.
then perhaps it should go back to the person who designed it to remediate it.
We could ask Peter to look at it, I think, huh?
Yeah, that's.
I hadn't heard that
Take a look
before.
at it.
but-
And one other thing I'd like to speak on,
Yes.
and on that 125, Paul, we're also trying to offset that money. There'll be a warrant article where we have saved more than the efficient amount needed for Holland Street.
You're gonna do Highland Street this year.
It's going to be on a warrant article. Highland Street will probably not be done this year. Peter has too many construction problems on his plate to take care of within the rest of the village area, but we will be taking that money out of capital
I
reserves,
saw that.
and it will be non-lapsing. So yes, it would be done within the next few years, because it's going to be used for what it was, but we're also going to ask to use $125,000 of that to offset this now.
When you take the money out of the Highland Street Reserve, where is it gonna go?
$485,000 would go to Highland Street.
So why are we taking it out of reserve? If we're not gonna do the road this year?
Because if we have an opportunity, if we can get that miracle grant, we want to have the money in our hands. And actually, we're not really taking it out. You're going to see a lot of these things now so that we don't have to have a special meeting like when the house came up, and we could take advantage of it. The selectmen will be given an opportunity to be the spending agents of those lines and that particular line, so that should that opportunity arise, they'll be able to act right away on it and not have to call a special meeting. To protect, the protection umbrella is the fact they won't be able to use any capital reserve lines for other than what they were meant to be used for. In this particular case, however, we are asking for 125 to be redesignated to take care of the infrastructure problems.
No, that's fine. I just wanna make sure that the Highland Street Reserve money goes for Highland Street, because obviously, we've been waiting a long time to finish that one section.
And it is, and the advantage, and the nice advantage is once you make the selectmen spending agents on a line like that, it doesn't lapse. So you don't even have to worry about the non-lapsing.
So you're in hopes of getting some more money, possibly in a grant or something like that, that might help you to do it sooner, is what you're saying. And because you'll have access to it, you'll be able to do it right away. Possibly. Not for sure, but possibly.
Right.
Okay, that's all I want to know. Pretty simple.
Any other discussion or questions concerning page 21? There being none, we'll move on to page 22. Any questions concerning page 22? And we move on to page 23. Any questions concerning page 23? There being none, we'll move on to page 24.
Sure. Frank has
Yes.
I have a question about this airport pay from the airport fund. Is that fund, is that what we earn or generate, receive monies from the state or, and then it's placed in the airport fund? Is that what we do to operate our airport? Is that the purpose of this line item here?
There are no monies from the state anymore, Frank. It's been quite a while.
Okay. All right. I just was curious of the question marks on this line item. And it has the appearance that we have a fund that we're taking money out to.
We do have a fund.
Okay.
Yeah. We have an airport that we lease, a hangar that we lease. We have the tie downs that we receive money for. That is now what generates and maintains that fund. No longer any money coming in from the state.
All right. Yeah.
Right. And the number does match the budget.
Yes, correct.
So I'd just like to point out that with all of the changes that are being proposed within this budget, the actual gross increase, you can see the bottom line is $299,361. And the net increase after consideration of all additional revenues is $106,305. So that is basically the equivalent of 25 cents on $1,000 in valuation if all revenues are received as we're projecting that they're anticipating that they will be received. So this is perhaps not quite level funded. The total increase, the net increase, is actually less than the increase, it gives us a budget of less than the last year's budget.
The budget that we're in now is $165,000 less
Right.
than last year. This budget will be equaled at $106,000, which makes it about $50,000 less
Right.
than what last year was.
So, any other comments or questions concerning the budget? We did, people probably have noticed that we have had a pretty dramatic increase in contributions to the New Hampshire retirement system. That accounted for approximately $200,000 of the increases in the overall budget. And that's something that we have no control over. We have to pay it. So, there are those items. Anyway, if there is no further discussion, I will close this budget hearing at 7 o'clock. Thank you very much.
Just a personal comment, thank you very much for your work. I know it's a very arduous job. Time consuming as well.
Thank you, Paul.
You're welcome. You don't have to move. I mean, this is, you like that? I guess. All right, we'll just squeeze right on through.
Well, I think they should have spoken now. We're gonna have another hearing, right?
We do have another. And we still have.
Property, well, it has to have been the cabin that I built when I was 17 years old. But I happen to know the chief of police, Steve LaFleur, so don't worry about it.
We'll see you Wednesday. You know, you were.
All right, continuing on with the, excuse me. Continuing on with the agenda of our regular meeting, is there any public comment this evening? Yes, Mr. Miller.
I have just a follow-up on my question on the airport. Are we constrained and limited to the budget by what elements we generate as far as income to that facility? No? Okay.
We're staying well within our budget.
Yeah, well, I didn't know if we, I think of the fund as a potential for receiving monies for other projects to enhance the airport.
We've done an improvement feasibility study being
Right.
taken care of, and we're looking at having an asphalt strip out there. But that's also being funded, and we just received, or we're in the process of receiving a $125,000 grant to go towards the airport.
Thank you.
And there should be some revenue also coming in from the airport on some tree cutting that we're having done across the street. So that'll be a significant amount of money also.
Yeah. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment this evening? Yes, Mr. Keefe.
Just a quick comment, Madam Chairperson. You did a nice job thanking all the budget heads and everyone for the work they did, but lest anyone think you're simply complimenting your own staff as part of the Independent Budget Review Committee, I just wanted to also say thank you for unbelievable frugality, and I think we've heard a few comments tonight about us all wanting to work together to make sure we're doing the right thing for our future infrastructure, but this is very frugal budgets, very conscientious work by all the department heads to generate what is essentially no increase at all when you consider the cost of everything going up every year. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Any other public comment? If not, I would request a motion to go into non-public session in accordance with RSA 91-A:3, 2C, reputation.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Bill and seconded by Mike. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right.
We are in non-public.